back to my channel, and if you're new, hi, my name is Tisika and I'm a freelance illustrator. I hope you enjoyed this video and tag along on my artsy journey here on YouTube. So a couple of weeks ago, I asked on my Instagram story what kind of tutorials you would be interested in, and the one that came up the most was my coloring process. So today, I will show you how I usually color digitally. So here is what I will cover in this video. First, the flat colors, and I'll show you two methods to fill in your flats. 2, blocking shadows and how I pick my colors and block the shadows. 3, rendering, the different tools that I use to make these extra juicy details. 4, adding highlights and how I take advantage of the layer modes. And lastly, the last touch-up, so how I'm using adjustment layers to make that drawing pop. The methods that I will show you are for Clip Studio Paint, so if you use a different software or application, it might slightly be different. Before we start, let me introduce you to the stunning characters here to help me demonstrate my coloring process. They are my mutual OCs that I've been dying to draw for so long, as well as my own OC. I'll leave their Instagram in the description box below so you can check their amazing art. Once I have my line art done, I will fill in the whole character with one solid color. There are two ways of doing so: manually filling it with your brush or using the enclosed fill lasso tool. I would usually use the lasso tool to fill in bigger parts and then manually fill in smaller ones. To use the enclose and fill lasso tool, you need first to check that your lines are closed. Otherwise, it might not work properly and the color will bleed outside your line art. Once you've checked that they're all closed, you'll need to check the reference layer box so the lasso tool will know that your line art is what it should use as its guide. This is also an important step if you want to use an erase along the edge type of eraser. This way the eraser follows your line art and will only erase the part that you want to erase, even if you go slightly over the line. Once the color is filled in, I'll check the pixel lock box so that when I work on this layer, only the filled in area will be edited. This is a bit similar to a selection with the lasso tool, though the difference is the pixel within your working area needs to be filled in for it to work. So let's say you've missed a spot in your painted area, that spot won't be included in the locked area and no colors will be added onto it. Whereas with the lasso tool, no matter if it's empty or filled in pixels, they will be affected by the actions that you make. The next step is blocking the shadows. To do so, you need to first set where your light is coming from. It will then be easier to place the shadows on your character. It doesn't always have to be harsh, defined lighting. It can also be soft ambient light. I will sometimes use the gradient tool to roughly indicate the main shadow before blocking smaller ones with a brush. When choosing colors for shadows, I usually pick them diagonally and not vertically. This way you get more vibrant colors. Of course, picking colors vertically isn't wrong, it's just my personal preferences. I will also tend to not pick from the exact same hue and will move the color wheel slightly around. I feel like this gives a bit more depth to the shadows, especially when I do color the skin. Since you have different undertones. And also don't forget that the ambient light from the background would also affect the color of the shadow, as well as the mood that you want to go for. So let's say bright and soft versus dull and gloomy. Yeah. Once I have the shadows down, I'll start rendering. The main three tools that I use for this step are the blending tool and the airbrush to smooth out parts, and a small brush to add details. You want to make sure that the focal point is the part that is the most rendered, that has more detail, so that it can be the area that draws the viewer's attention. Faces are usually the focal point, but it can be other elements depending on what is the subject that you're drawing or what the message you want your piece to convey. The focal point is also often the area that has the most contrast in values, and here's a simple way to check your values. First, you want to create a new layer at the very top, then change the layer mode to saturation, and filling it with white. And voila! Here you can check your values. So after my rendering is done, I'll add some extra highlights to give the drawing that extra pop, I'll usually pick a vibrant color and draw outlines on the layer that I'll put in the glow dodge mode. The color would usually be highly saturated yellows or oranges and sometimes blues. For these drawings, I use a bright yellow. Adding these outlines is a quick and efficient way to give a sense of where the light is coming from, as well as making the drawing stand out from the background a bit more. The last step is to touch up a few things to give that finished look to the piece. That's when I will add some final details like the reflection in the eyes or on the lips, and some clothing details. Then, to give a cohesive look to the piece, I will usually play around with the tone curve to adjust the brightness and contrast a bit. I also feel like this adds a little bit of spice to the drawing. And this is my complete coloring process. I do like to experiment sometimes, so if my process ever changes over time, I'll make another video with the updated version. I would like to thank again my mutuals for letting me draw their wonderful OCs, and please be sure to check their amazing art on Instagram. I hope this video was helpful, and if you have any questions, please let me know in the comment below. And see you next time with the next video. Bye bye!